if Mayor
Sara
decides to run for president in 2022, supposedly to succeed her father, parang magiging anti-in-law kayo ng president?
Ang bilis mong lumundag.
Ang ating pong guest, kilala naman kayo ng lahat. Ano po? Dating Ombudsman, Ramon Magsaysay Awardee, at pinarangalan dahil sa kanyang integrity, diligence, incorruptibility, at dignity bilang Ombudsman. Kayo din po ay naging judge sa lower courts at Associate Justice ng Supreme Court. 5 pangulo ang dinaanan po ng inyong mahabang career. Now, you are a very keen observer of Philippine politics and society. 2 taon matapos kayong umalis sa Office of the Ombudsman, ano ang general observations nyo? Are we doing better or are we sliding to regress?
We, particularly with respect to corruption,
Okay.
corruption is escalating to higher levels.
All right.
That's my observation. Yes.
Okay. But curiously, the president, when he came to power, focused his platform on 3 things: drugs, crime, and corruption. At
Yes.
yung gumalaw. Pero itong huli, meron siyang task force na binuo. Kailan lamang? Parang last 2 minutes ba ito, ma'am? O
Yes, yes.
Kulang na
Because according to him, one of his platforms was to eradicate corruption. But he himself admits that corruption is getting worse. So he came up with the idea of creating a mega task force against corruption.
Yung ba'y makalulutas o makagugulo lang? Kasi parang nawala ng papel ang ombudsman.
That's the irony of it. The ombudsman is supposed to be the institution that should be leading the crusade against corruption. Pero ang nangyayari ngayon, it is now the Secretary of Justice which is given the task to be the lead in fight corruption. And in fact, it's even inviting other agencies, institutions like the Ombudsman,
Yes.
to help carry out its mandate.
Yeah. We talked to Secretary Guevara. Ang sabi niya, ang goal nila is to file as many cases as they could with the Ombudsman. But of course, the big question is, kailan matatapos ang paglilitis ng mga kaso? Ibig sabihin, baka naman wala silang ma-resolve na hanggang bring them to jail. Ano ho yung tingin yung outlook? They have 18 months left in the Duterte admin. What can they do?
Well, ang game plan niya is to put as many corrupt as possible to jail. Now, it's one thing to conduct preliminary investigation, for which you have to conduct fact-finding investigation. It's another thing to file a case in court and for trial to ensue.
That's right. And the duration of a case, as big as, for example, plunder or malversation, gaano katagal po hanggang sa final and executory yung desisyon hanggang Korte Suprema? Ilang taon?
To begin with, ang trial, ang bagal-bagal. There's one particular case, itong case ni Enrile. I don't know if it has segued to initial trial. I recall that when I left the office, they have not even concluded preliminary, no, they have not even concluded the marking of exhibits in the preliminary conference. But I don't know what's the status of the case now. So even now, the case has not gone to trial proper, that's what I mean. And I think the case has been pending in court for maybe 3 years or more.
All
so
right.
For me to calculate how long a case can be decided with finality, we cannot predict.
Okay. We are asking that kasi ang amin pong pagsuma, mga 20 opisyal appointed ni President Duterte, either nasiba, nasuspendido, o na-reassign, o pinaalis sa trabaho, pero walang kaso.
Or recycle.
Yes, ni-recycle. At sabi nga ho namin kay Secretary Guevara, paano ba yan? Kapag kaibigan at kapartido, may katarungan. Kapag kaaway o kontrapartido, kulong. Yun po ba yung observation na fair ng mga tao? Kasi parang walang exemplary justice ng malalaking isda.
Kasi kung minsan, like in the case of Sinas, okay, he has a pending case in light of his non-observation of the protocols that were imposed during the pandemic. May pending case daw, but sabi naman ni Presidente, hindi pa yan nahuhusgahan, hindi pa yan nako-convict, papardon daw niya. Yeah. You can, in the Philippines, you can only pardon a person once he is convicted.
Yan, ma'am, matanong ko lang po kayo. Nung kayo po yung naging ombudsman, you inherited 11,000 cases na backlog. And then you made it your goal to have 0 backlog by the time you step out of the ombudsman. Ngayon po, tila walang kasong napafile. Quiet ang mga investors.
Meron naman daw, 65 daw for last year.
65, okay.
Yes.
Yung problema ng maraming hindi lang reporters, ano po, yung mga taong bayan din, yung SALN parang under lock and key. Bakit po nagkaroon ng circular na gano'n?
That was made public. Yeah. Ayaw niyang i-release ang SALN because he wants to protect daw the officials because more often than not, those who asking for copies of SALNs are not actuated by good faith.
But is that the case when you were ombudsman?
No, I released them. I don't recall having refused to release SALN of anyone, unless, of course, the decision of the proper office did not reach me anymore. In other words, if they declined to release any request they declined to grant request for SALN, it did not reach me anymore.
Okay. But the curious thing is, actually, the silence of salary grade 27 officials, the most senior, the elective officials, and then, of course, yung mga local government heads, mayor, governor, they're all being considered part of the ombudsman's duty as custodian. Pero yung mga rank and file sa Civil Service Commission, parang kawawa naman. Sila exposed. Pero itong mga taong ang taas ng posisyon, protected ang SALN. Di po ba may konting disparity o inequity?
Yes. Because the civil service has its own rules respecting the release of SALNs, and the Office of the Ombudsman has also its own rules respecting the release of SALNs. Now, the present ombudsman does not believe in releasing the SALN of government officials within its jurisdiction, because he thinks that these are being used for not good purposes.
Pero ang tila gumagamit lang naman ng SALN away-away nilang mga politiko. Hindi naman yata yung mga taong bayan o yung journalist.
Well, some journalists want to have access of the SALNs because they want to determine whether the salary of the official and his businesses are commensurate. I mean, in other words, the income of these government officials on the basis of their salary and businesses, listed businesses, is commensurate to what they garner as income from their office.
Lawful income. Ano po? Punta tayo, ma'am, dito sa Anti-Terrorism Act. Isa po kayo, yung grupo ninyo ni Justice Carpio, na petitioner, 37 petitions questioning the legality and the abridgment of fundamental freedoms ng Anti-Terrorism Act. Kwento nyo nga po, ano yung ayaw nyo dun?
Well, we believe that the enclosing alone of the Anti-Terrorism Council of powers, which should rightfully belong to the judiciary, is to us unconstitutional.
Okay.
So, to us, if the fault lies in the creation of the Anti-Terrorism Council, then the entire Anti-Terrorism Act is unconstitutional. Okay. But if the entire provisions of the Anti-Terrorism Act are not unconstitutional, then there are provisions which are like those which curtail the freedom of expression, those which violate due process, and
Exactly.
similar violations of the law.
Mhm. Sa inyo po bang nasilip, ano ba yung dahilan? Do we need another anti-terrorism act?
Well, I think that they became stricter because from what we gather, um, even suspicion of being a terrorist would be punishable because maybe they appreciated that there have been some critics which have been trying to, as they say, put down the government.
Okay. Pero punta ho tayo ngayon dun sa connected issue, itong red baiting na nangyayari. Maraming
Red
mga,
tagging.
yes,
Red tagging.
tagging, opo.
Mhm.
Ang sabi nila, yung mga aktivistang to, front groups ng komunista, nagbibigay ng pondo sa NPA, pero of course itinatanggi yon. Sa inyo po bang pakiwari, ano po ba talaga ang pagkakaugnay-ugnay? Aktivista, militante, komunista, terorista, rebelde. Yun ho ba yung one and the same? Kasi that is how the government wants to make it look.
I don't have enough knowledge about all these things.
Mhm.
But what I know is that these militants are being tagged as communists, or if not communists, sympathizers of communists. And if you extend further your view over this, they would be liable for conspiracy with the communists.
Mhm.
So that would be punishable.
Okay. But actually, they have not taken up arms, which is in the law, the real offense that government is imputing. Di ba po? Na parang rebelde to.
You are referring to those who are tagged as communists.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, but maybe physically taking up arms against the government would not suffice would not necessarily exclude them from being tagged as communists. In other words, they don't have to physically hold or the government as liable for this or that, but they can be silent partners of those who are tagged as communists.
Okay. But what has happened in recent days, lalo na International Human Rights Day, several people, 7 of them, union leaders and journalists, were arrested. So para ho merong search warrant factory daw sa ilang courts. Yun ho ba yung nangyayari? O talaga ho bang...
Well, I don't know about these warrants of arrest, but if you believe that these are spurious or they were not legally issued, then you can move for the quashal of these arrests.
Okay. Kaso po meron
Warrants, I mean.
tanim ebidensya.
Yes.
Baril.
Planting evidence, yes. Okay.
So, yun ho ba, kasi ang problema naman natin, pagka daw nga ho, ando na yung search warrant, hindi naman na-examine, ano bang hahanapin nyo? O hinahanap, kaninong pangalan? So, yung ganun awareness dun sa mga kinukuyog ng mga police o ng mga arresting teams, hindi malinaw. Until, of course, meron na daw baril, meron daw ammo.
Well, kung minsan, ang search warrant, not kung minsan, ang search warrant is supposed to specify the place searched, the product or item or stuff to be searched. Now, you are supposed to be limited to looking at all these items, but there are such things as items which are open to hand and eye. In other words, nakita mo incidentally, then you are at liberty also to confiscate those items. Although, of course, those searches, more often than not, say that these are planted. In other words, wala silang ganon, pero the searching officials or officers planted them to justify the merit that the arrest warrant was lawfully issued.
All right. Ngayon, ito hong red tagging, parang to someone who's looking from outside in. Ang best friend ng Pangulo yatang government leader komunista, si Xi Jinping. Di ba po may kaso kayo sa West Philippine Sea? So hindi ho ba parang napakalaking irony nun? Red tagging dito sa Pilipinas, na mga Pilipino daw, pero best friend, forever halos, ang China.
Pero ang ating alleged communists dito are supposed to be taking arms and putting down the government.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about Xi Jinping if he intends also to put down any government or any institution for that matter.
Yeah, but you filed the case precisely with the UN General Assembly and the ICC for China's claim over the West Philippine Sea, territories in the West Philippine Sea.
The Philippines expect that the ruling of the arbitral tribunal should be respected. But early on, the president was cool, was not warm about giving importance to this ruling of the arbitral tribunal.
Yeah.
So for all the efforts that went with the study of this case and eventually led to the winning by the Philippines of the case, of course, those who were behind it were sad because our own president is not keen on enforcing this ruling of the arbitral tribunal.
Until recently, that he changed his tune again.
Well, hopefully this time he means business.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am. Pag-usapan po natin yung si Pangulong Duterte. 5 pangulo before President Duterte ang nakita ninyo sa posisyon. From judge to ombudsman, na karir ninyong napakahaba at napakamakulay. Sa mga pangulo hubang nagdaan, ano sa tingin ninyo yung pinaka-defining moment sa panahon ngayon ni President Duterte compared sa iba, if I may ask?
Alam mo, the present president has still less than 2 years to finish his term. So it would probably be premature to judge him now vis-a-vis the other presidents.
All right. But one of the things that I know that you try to recuse yourself from pagka may investigation sa family because pariente, di ba po? Pamangkin ninyo si Mangahas Carpio na husband ni Sara Duterte. If Mayor Sara decides to run for president in 2022, which is what people are talking about.
Mayor who? Mayor Sara? Yes.
Opo, if she plans to run for national office in 2022, supposedly to succeed her father. Parang magiging anti-in-law kayo ng president?
Ang bilis mong lumundag.
Parang kasi, those are what people are talking about. Okay, walang salin from 2018 ng Pangulo. 2019, wala. Yung final ng 20...
Meron siguro. Meron, pero hindi rin i-release.
Yun nga po.
Because the ombudsman says you go to the office of the president. The office of the president says you go to the ombudsman. Ay ping-pong yan eh.
Opo. And that goes as well for the mayors and the governors who might be running for national office. Walang salin. Nothing to speak of na pwedeng pagsimula ng integrity review. Paano po yun, ma'am?
Well, you keep complaining until you get what you want. But the trouble is that has been going on for months on end. But to date, there seems to be nothing concrete.
Exactly. But is that the job of the ombudsman to keep the silence under lock and key?
That's not my policy when I was there.
All right. Why do you think is he doing it? I mean,
well, for reasons only known to him. I cannot fathom his reason, but I do not agree with his policy. I made that public months back.
Because it was supposedly a decision kept also under wraps in the office of the ombudsman himself alone. Ito pong unusual itong pagiging anti ninyo ni Mangahas Carpio. Ano po? Tapos si Mayor Sara. And I know you were godmother and the president was godfather sa kasal, di po ba?
Godfather ng kapatid.
Ng kapatid.
Kapatid. Pero ako, grandmother ako ni Sara at ni Mansi.
Opo.
Ang godfather naman ng kapatid ni Mansi, si Waldo, ay si presidente and ako rin ang godmother.
Opo, okay.
Let's clear that up. Okay.
Okay. Now, we had a report 2 years ago na merong law firm si Sara at saka si Mangahas that they organized many years back but had not registered with the SEC or had not registered at all for business permit. You know ba?
That I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if they had it registered or not. But I know that they organized this law office long before the
Yeah.
president became president.
Yeah. And for that matter, also, actually, the president's law firm also was registered early on naman. And some of his pals there at the time were appointed to certain government positions na critical. Have you had a chance to talk to the president about state of affairs sa bayan?
Never.
Never? Were you ever invited to Malacanang to sit down with the family, pariente naman?
Never.
But if you had been invited, would you have attended?
I would have crossed my bridge when I got it.
Okay. But if you were to talk to the Filipino people and not the president, actually, what do you want to see happen in the last 18 months of the Duterte admin?
Well, given our pandemic, which has a lot of restrictions, I would tell our people to still pin hope. You know, as they say, hope springs eternal. Huwag naman tayong maging pessimistic. Let's still hope, as Biden says, maybe let's turn a page. Baka sakaling gaganda yung next page.
All right. Now, in the Supreme Court, where you had served as Associate Justice, the president is likely to appoint his fourth Chief Justice because Chief Justice Peralta is retiring earlier than the required.
Mandatory period of retirement.
Mandatory. Okay. So there have been a series of short duration, short-term chief justices of the Supreme Court. Is this good or bad for the High Court?
It would depend, on the Chief Justice himself. Because if the Chief Justice, even during a brief stint, is able to improve the administration of justice, in other words, if he is able or she is able to institute reforms that would improve the image of the judiciary and the speed in which decisions are made, then being a short-lived Chief Justice does not necessarily mean bad so far as the Philippines is concerned. In other words, even if you give Chief Justice 1 month to act as Chief Justice, if during that period he or she is able to carry out reforms to improve the judiciary, then that's okay. But even if you have a Chief Justice who probably stays for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, but he is an indolent Chief Justice,
Are you
who
referring
does
to
not
anybody?
care about who does not care about improving the judiciary, then
Right.
that's the other side of it. That's bad.
Okay. But the record is actually because there was a quo warranto petition against then Chief Justice Lourdes Sereno. And that started the series of new appointees to the post of CJ. Ngayon, may impeachment na naman, ma'am. I understand that you had also been the subject of impeachment complaints 3 times, not just 1 time. The other time, the 1 time of the 3 by lawyer Gadon. What happened then?
Me against me?
Yes, ma'am. Di ba po may impeachment complaint din daw kayo?
Yes.
Tatlong
Yes, several. Yes, yes.
sa amin.
And
Ano nangyari?
well, it never was endorsed by any congressman. In fact, I made sure that I would have the best documentary evidence in my defense. I already contacted a lawyer to assist me. I gave the bag full of documents to him so that if the impeachment really progressed, then I would be ready to face it. But it never materialized.
Kwento nyo nga ho, ano yung complaints na nakalagay doon? Anong issue ang ni-raise sa inyo nung nag-file ng impeachment complaint?
Well, selective justice daw ako. Pinipili ko lang daw yung mga opposition that I would be filing in court. That was the most important charge against me. Na ako raw ay mabagal, na ako raw ay biased against particular people and all that similar charges.
Okay,
So as I said, I was ready. I had documentary evidence in my defense. And alam mo ang ginawa ko, Malu?
Opo.
Itong documentary evidence, pinadigital ko, ano bang tawag dun? Digitize. Okay. I had them photocopied several times. I left several in the office. I gave some to my secretary, and I also kept some for me, so that even if they burned the office of the ombudsman, there would still be other sources.
All right.
Yes.
Oh, parang pareho po yung mga tested facts, ano po, na nakafile ngayon against Justice Marvick Leonen. Pero isa ho sa complaint sa inyo daw, final ni Attorney Gadon?
Yeah. Gadon, Luna, yung sa akin?
Opo. Yung isa?
Yung sa akin or kay Leonen?
Yung sa inyo pong kaso?
Si Gadon, si Vac. Naku, ang dami lahat. Parang, you know, they went berserk against me.
Okay.
So, sabi kong, sorry. Sabi kong ganyan. No, it's not the number of complaints. It is the merit of the complaints. But as I said, fortunately, it was never endorsed.
All right. Sa case ni Justice Leonen, of course, siguro dahil pinag-uusapan pa yung complaint, ayaw hindi siya magsasalita. Pero si Attorney Gadon din na naman ho yung filer. Ang lawyer ng filer.
Yes. And he even claims na mas magaling siya kay ano?
Kay Leonen.
Kay Leonen.
Opo. But of course, you know that about 120 law faculty members of UP, where you graduated from, and also very important legal eagles in the country had signed the petition in support of Justice Leonen, citing the same issues, contesting the same issues, I'd rather say. Parang yung partiality, yung bias, yung supposed delay. Yun mo pa talagang medyo kapalaran na ng mga huwes natin na nagkakaroon ng independent position or jurisprudence philosophy?
Yeah, those are general allegations. Now, they complain about delay in the disposition of cases, but the Supreme Court has time and again ruled that the 24-month period within which the Supreme Court justice is supposed to resolve a case after it is submitted for decision is merely directory. In other words, it is not mandatory. There's an explanation behind that, and I know you've read the column of Justice Carpio.
Magkakaroon daw ng oral arguments sa Anti-Terrorism Act.
January 19.
Opo. Will you be there and will you be arguing for the petitioners?
No, our counsel will be the ones arguing. Now, whether I'll be there or not, we don't know, but they are trying to limit attendance because, you know, given the current pandemic, social distancing is strictly observed. There is no certainty that I'll be personally present, but if Zoom will be allowed, there is also no certainty that I will be asked questions because from what I hear, a petitioner, not necessarily the counsel, can be asked questions if the Supreme Court magistrates wish to inquire from the petitioners themselves.
Ano po yung sa tingin ninyong pwedeng maasahan ng mga tao ngayon? May pandemya, may uncertainty sa ekonomiya at kabuhayan ng mga tao. Ano po yung inyong tingin? Are we still rising again? Could we still come back as a nation?
Well, given the discovery of a lot of corruption during the pandemic, perhaps our eyes have been wide opened to this sad state of things. So if there is anything that we should expect collective action from the people to push the government officials to be more caring, to actuate their performance with good faith, and not to be just sitting idly by. You know, the worst thing that can happen to us if we hear the news that this and this occurred, but we just don't do anything about it. And we just say, oh, that lumang tugtugin. We cannot do that. We have to do something constructive in order to improve whatever we wish to improve and increase the likelihood of giving more economic benefits to people, especially the marginalized, because the gap between the rich and the poor has widened so far.
Okay. So, ma'am, balik tayo dun sa tatlong pangako ng Pangulo. Drugs, crime, and corruption. Bigyan
Okay.
niyo kami ng grado. Pasado ba sa drugs campaign o bagsak?
You know, Malu, why is it that every now and then, itong mga agents discover millions of drugs? You know what I mean? Despite several years of anti-drug activities,
Yeah.
the increase of drugs discovered
Yeah.
have not abated. Has
Right.
not abated. Mukhang walang nangyayari eh. Dumadami ang mga drugs na nako-confiscate.
Okay.
And we see a lot of drug users, but we don't see a lot of drug peddlers. I mean, itong mga drug pushers or mga godfathers ng drugs. We don't see anyone finally convicted. When I say finally, maybe some are convicted, but the appeal is still pending. So, how do you rate that? Do you rate it as successful when up to now dumadami ang mga nahuhuli?
Okay. So, parang hindi pasado pagka drugs kasi nandiyan pa rin ang problema. Walang nako-convict na mga drug lords o drug syndicates na
maybe you said hindi pasado. Baka pasado rin, pero hindi mataas ang grado.
75.
Baka pasang-awa.
Pasang-awa. Okay. 75.
Baka pasang-awa.
Okay, pasang-awa. Sa crime, ma'am, ano? Pasado? Pasang-awa? Bagsak?
Well, if you hear the police, sasabihin nila, ang statistics nila, bumaba daw ang crime rate.
Okay.
But unfortunately, you see a mayor being shot. You see an ex-mayor being shot.
Yeah.
You see councillors being shot just like that, openly in broad daylight.
Yeah.
It's very alarming.
Yeah. And judges also. And lawyers.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So, yun, alarming. So, pasang-awa ulit? Pwede, ma'am? Pasang-awa? Medyo, ano?
Peace order natin nag-improve, yes. But it's still punctuated with these cases of people in broad daylight.
Okay. Rule of law and due process, bagsak. Okay. Una na, itong favorite na issue ninyo sa puso ninyo pinakamalapit, corruption. Bagsak.
Well, the president, as I said, the president himself admits that corruption is getting worse.
Yeah.
Sadly, most of his appointees, which he brought to the government, to his government, are the ones being tagged as corrupt. They resign because they are tagged as corrupt, or they are tagged as inefficient, or simply indolent.
Okay. Indolent. But for a while, that was some of the things that people were looking at. Yung parang, okay, good manners and right conduct campaign daw na ilulunsad bilang anti-corruption initiative. But we were asking Secretary Guevara, sir, paano good manners and right conduct? Si Pangulo walang preno. Medyo mapanlait sa mga kababaihan, sa mga kaaway niya, at medyo hindi pulido ang mga pagsasalita. So, the general conduct of the president, do you have some concerns there? Language, demeanor, and of course, quality of time that he devotes to his office. Kasi for a while, hinahanap siya ng mga taong bayan na nasaan daw ang Pangulo. Do you have observations there so that the next president could be advised?
Being a public official is a thankless job. But if you want to embrace public service, you have to deserve what the public is giving you. huwag kang magnakaw ng oras.
Okay.
You devote time to attend to your work. You should not be only after the position and the perks that go with it.
Yeah. Okay.
You should not steal time. I-devote mo naman ang oras mo na magtrabaho ka. I was citing the other day before a group of Athenians that remember there were some generals before. I hope the practice is still is no longer observed. They were playing golf during office hours.
Wow.
What? May nag-comment na, okay lang siguro kung pwede basta nagawa niya ang trabaho. Suppose all employees also play golf during office time or they're not in their seats during office time. Ano mangyayari sa gobyerno, sa bureaucracy, sa machinery? What would happen?
Okay.
So we should not have double standard.
Okay. Yeah, and I remember you saying the Philippines doesn't need a strong man, but only strong institutions. Tama po ba yun?
Yeah.
Are we there?
Yes.
Are we there?
We need strong institutions. We don't necessarily need a strong leader.
Yeah.
Kahit mahina ang leader kung strong ang institution, pero ang leader naman dapat meron namang attributes of leadership.
Okay. Maraming salamat po, Justice Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales. Ma'am, kumusta na lang po sa buong pamilya at ingat po.
Thank you, Malu. Thank you.
Happy all the time. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.